Well, breaking news tonight, Councilmember Trayon White has been arrested. Now, White represents Ward 8 in Southeast D.C., and he's known for being outspoken about violence around the district and in his community, even calling for the National Guard to step in at one point. Now, the Councilmember has been working in the community since he was 17 years old. And tonight, we are working to learn more about what led to his arrest. Our Liana Golden is live at the FBI field office tonight. Liana, city leaders are being very tight-lipped about this. What do we know so far?
We know that arrest took place earlier in the afternoon around 2 o'clock. D.C. Council Chairman Phil Mendelson confirming that arrest to 7 News, but not really saying much else.
Scott, you were in court today for his first appearance. Just how serious are all of these allegations?
Very serious. White is accused of accepting $35,000 4 times for exchange for his influence to push through renewal contracts for 2 vendors that do business with the district. Let me show you what he looked like in federal court today. And keep in mind, he is charged with bribery on a federal level. White is the chair of a committee which oversees the D.C. Department of Youth Rehab Services. Investigators claim White accepted $156,000 total to help influence the renewal of contracts for 2 companies doing business with D.C. and the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. It runs one of the violence interrupter programs for the district. White was caught on camera several times accepting bribes. Inside the criminal complaint, you can see snapshots of video that investigators used to bring charges against the council member, and a ledger showing his cut of the deal. Here is reaction from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser.
I think anytime you have an elected official that does something wrong or is accused of doing something wrong, people are going to have a lot of heartburn and serious questions and disappointment and anger and all of those things.
Right now, 7 News takes a deep dive into the FBI's bribery case against Trayon White. How the undercover operation went down, from what the feds claim were big money payments to who the councilman thought he was dealing with. Also, what were the contracts for? 7 News seeks answers from the agency that runs the violence interrupters and tries to get them to open their books. Plus, as Trayon White runs for re-election, what happens to his Ward 8 seat if he's convicted? And with the evidence as it's currently laid out, a former federal prosecutor on one of White's options.
Does he know about other corruption within the District of Columbia government?
Right now at 5:30, 7 News has special expanded team coverage taking an in-depth look at the federal bribery case against D.C. Councilmember Trayon White.
I-Team investigator Mitch Blocker will walk you through what led up to White's arrest by the FBI. And D.C. reporter Felicia Ashley is hearing from the people White represents.
And later, I-Team investigator Scott Taylor looks into the agencies that are named in that criminal probe. Here's the latest. White is accused of accepting thousands of dollars to push for the city to renew certain contracts related to violence intervention and youth rehabilitation. The committee he chairs oversees agencies that lead those efforts.
And he was arrested on Sunday afternoon by the FBI and appeared in court yesterday. He was released. White allegedly took $35,000 in cash and said to have agreed to $150,000 in kickbacks.
He's accused of pressuring government at the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services. Now, the allegations against White are outlined in a 37-page complaint with pictures from a federal investigation and screenshots of WhatsApp messages that he allegedly sent.
And 7 News I-Team reporter Mitch Blocker is joining us tonight live in studio. Mitch, you've gone through this page by page.
Yeah, it reads like a play-by-play of what you would think as a classic political corruption scandal. The FBI, they say that they actually captured cash payments and secret meetings, and their evidence, it shows a city councilman promising to deliver multi-million-dollar city contracts to the man handing him envelopes stuffed with cash.
Federal investigators say this is D.C. Councilmember Trayon White, captured on camera taking envelope after envelope of cash bribes. The councilman thought he was dealing with a trusted ally. Instead, the FBI and U.S. attorneys say he was trading his influence for cash with an FBI informant.
Lost words with this one, man.
White has been railing against crime since he was on the school board.
Taken from this store is really taken from yourself.
The FBI began documenting his alleged crime in June. On June 26, 2024, Councilman White thinks he's meeting a business owner interested in government contracts. The man is an FBI informant. He records as Councilman White takes an envelope stuffed with $15,000 cash. The full video and audio haven't been made public yet, but the indictment transcribes the conversation. Councilman White tells the business owner, "So you're trying to get an idea where they're going to go with the contracts." In the following weeks, White allegedly began putting pressure on D.C. government employees, telling them to re-up contracts for violence intervention with the informant's companies. The men met again on July 17th. The FBI says agents caught White again on camera, this time taking an envelope filled with $5,000. The audio transcript reads, "That's for making sure you reach out to government employee 3 and government employee 4. The councilman responds, "I'm on top of that. You know me. I'm already moving." On July 24th, the FBI says White began naming his price. "Can you bring 10? He texted the informant. They met the next day, where White accepted an envelope filled with $10,000. The FBI also claims its agents recorded the councilman describing how he'd use political leverage to secure the informant's contracts. "I have great weight when it comes to violence and work on that council," the transcript reads. The indictment says White pressured a government employee to secure contracts or he'd pull his support for their confirmation. The allegations go beyond what the feds say they saw the councilman put in his pocket or record him saying. According to the indictment, White exchanged his influence for $156,000 in total payments going back years. The transcript suggests he planned to expand the scheme once he was reelected in November. Friday, a D.C. judge signed the councilman's arrest warrant. He was arrested over the weekend and started the work week being arraigned for bribery. And this indictment, it paints a picture of a public official who's willing to use his political influence all for personal gain, all while seeming to think that he was talking to a friend. But again, that friend was recording every word and documenting every dollar.
7 News spoke today with a former federal prosecutor about what we can expect from White's defense.
I suppose a possible defense for Councilmember White will be he'll say he was entrapped by this, that the government reached out to him and they put a cooperating witness with him to say that he was entrapped. That's uphill. That's a defense that he would have to prove at trial. The challenge for him will be they'll have recordings where he's accepted cash. It's not like he accepted a check that was, revealed publicly in some sort of campaign finance report. This was cash that was off the books. So that'll be a challenge for him to explain that to a jury.
Well, if you go on the official D.C. Council page, you'll see at the moment, Trayon White is still a council member. He's still listed with everyone else, and he's going to remain on the council at least for now. But we're told he will remain one until either he is convicted of a felony or if the council decides to vote to kick him off the council.
If the District of Columbia is supposed to be that shining light of small d democratic government, its political leadership has a disappointing habit of running afoul of the law. In the 50 years since D.C. got home rule, the rogues gallery of disgraced politicians will always start with Marion Barry.
The so-called mayor for life was arrested in 1990 on drug charges. The Post reported Mr. Barry muttered famously, "Bitch set me up," as he was being led away in handcuffs. He was convicted and served 6 months in prison. But Barry was also a 4-time mayor and called the most powerful politician of his generation. In 2012, Councilman Harry Thomas Jr. was convicted of stealing tax dollars meant for kids and served 38 months in prison. That same year, former Council Chairman Kwame Brown pleaded guilty to bank fraud and campaign finance violations. In 2013, Councilman Michael A. Brown pleaded guilty to accepting $55,000 in bribes from an undercover FBI agent.
At the time he was caught, Michael Brown said the city was caught in a culture of corruption. He was right. 4 other former D.C. councilmen also had legal or ethics issues that tarnished their careers.
Former Mayor Vince Gray endured a long federal probe of his 2010 campaign that found no admissible evidence. In 2014, corruption allegations against Councilman Jim Graham ended his bid for a 5th term. 2 years later, Vincent Orange resigned his council term early amid bitter criticism over conflict of interest allegations. And in 2020, the longest-serving city councilman, Jack Evans, resigned amid ethics violations. That after the other 12 council members urged his expulsion.
Now, Councilman White's arrest adds another sad chapter to this list of alleged political misdeeds and outright betrayals of the public's trust. But as D.C. history also shows, his political career could be far from over. I'm Dave Lucas, 7 News.
Council members can have a real impact on whether particular initiatives in those offices really get fully funded and embraced.
Jeffrey Richardson is the founder of We the Community Health Worker Coalition. He was the chief executive director of Serve DC. It's one of these 22 agencies that Councilman Trayon White oversees.
It really requires a supportive relationship with the council member every year to come before for oversight, and several times a year you come, before for testimony, accountability.
Also on the list, Latino, African, Caribbean, and Pacific Asian Affairs, along with the Public Library System. Another agency on the list, the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services. It's also listed on White's criminal complaint. White agreed to allegedly accept $156,000 in cash payments to pressure government employees at DYRS, as well as the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, to extend contracts for programs.
If what happened, that individual, that leader, lost sight of all those constituents that you mentioned. All those offices represent people.
Richardson says he's been part of the process when agencies and organizations tried to get funding and approval from the council. He's concerned this investigation may cast broad judgment on people and organizations doing pure work.
We are here on the ground doing our job, and now we need our elected officials to do their due diligence and make sure that the resources continue to flow.
I met with Chairman Phil Mendelson after he issued this memo to the council members. It revealed the ad hoc committee was created to investigate White's bribery allegations and where he lives.
Given the seriousness of the charges, unless something very surprising happens, that the charges go away, I would expect that the ad hoc committee will be looking at censure or expulsion.
As Councilman Trayon White walked into court, he hinted that he's not going anywhere. In fact, he said he will be back at work when the council is back in session. Trayon, was there anything you wanted to say to your supporters today?
Good, man. Put it all in God's hands, man. He's never failed me.
Do you plan on being part of council next week?
Absolutely.
Do you also plan to keep your name on the ballot? Surrounded by supporters, Councilman Trayon White walked into a federal courthouse for his arraignment on federal bribery charges.
Show me somebody else to care about Ward 8.
The hearing lasted about 10 minutes. Inside, prosecutors revealed White was previously offered a plea deal but denied it. Today, he pled not guilty in court. I spoke with White's attorney, Frederick Cook Jr., after he told the judge they were not ready to set a trial date. They're getting 60 days to go through the discovery. When do you think you all will be ready for trial?
Oh, I have no idea. As I stand here right now, don't know.
What brought you out here today? You've been very passionate and vocal.
Well, because this man is one of the greatest city council members that we have on that dais. And Myron Barrett, who is his godfather, asked me to watch over his son.
Supporters of White were never more than steps away from him in hats, shirts, and holding posters. Councilmember. Just about an hour ago was actually the deadline for Councilman Trayon White to withdraw, if that was his plan, from this nomination for the election that is coming up. Well, he did not do that, so he is still in this race, and he will actually be back at this courthouse on November 13th. That is just about a week after the election. Reporting live from the federal courthouse, Felicia Ashley, 7 News.
White has not responded to questions since that arrest, but over the weekend, his constituents, friends, and family surrounded him in prayer, asking to forgive whatever sins he may have committed. Take a listen.
We thank him for his role as council member. To be saved, to be delivered, to be rescued.
Our Washington, D.C. reporter spoke exclusively with White today about his federal charges, his council seat, and his work representing Ward 8. She joins us now live from Anacostia. And Felicia, White was surrounded by his community today.
That's right, and it's pretty reflective of the support he's received throughout this whole process, from when he was first arrested to even winning the most recent election. And I spoke to him today. This is while he was handing out turkeys to his community. Hundreds of people showed up, and I asked him about those charges, and he said, you know what, the court system, it has to do what it has to do, but he says he's focused on doing what he has to do here in his community. 7 News spoke to Councilman Trayon White while he handed out 800 free turkeys to people living in Ward 8. He told 7 News he's focused on representing the community that just re-elected him to his council seat. It's this same seat his council members could remove him from. They're spending $400,000 of taxpayer money on an outside counsel to help them make a decision. The trial for White's federal bribery case won't start until January 2026. We have until next January. What are some things you do want to focus on in that time period? I know people may think it may be a distraction. What do you want your constituents?
Oh, we're going to continue to do what we're doing right now. That's come to work every day, answer the calls.
And then I know one question some had was why you did or didn't take a plea in this situation.
I can't speak about an open investigation or case.
White supporters are very vocal on social media. Some suggest White was set up. We looked at all the evidence in his federal complaint, and it appears that will be difficult to prove.
Ward 8 strong.
Trayon White walking out of federal court moments after his arraignment on bribery charges, where 7 News learned he rejected a plea deal and pled not guilty. I asked White if he was concerned about losing his seat on D.C. Council. Hey, Trayon, do you have any concern about your seat?
My trust is in God. Put it all in God's hands.
The word entrapment is on the minds of White supporters. Do you think there's any possibility that Trayon was entrapped by?
You know what's up. Y'all know what's up.
I want to know what you think about
that.
Yes. The whole community believed that he was entrapped, that the FBI sent an informant, somebody that was working for them, to set the council member up, to try to set him up.
This is an image from Trayon White's federal indictment. Investigators call it evidence of the D.C. councilman accepting $15,000 in cash stuffed in an envelope. He tells the government informant, I've got some other we can be doing too. He adds, like there's so much we be doing. White then shows the informant his cell phone and says, tomorrow, looking who I'm meeting tomorrow.
The video is pretty harmful to Councilmember White.
Georgetown law professor Erica Hashimoto, a former federal public defender, says the normal way an entrapment defense is used is if a person is drawn in by someone from the government. The government says that's not the case for White. White's own words in the criminal complaint appear to disprove entrapment.
So you've got, according to what's in the complaint, Mr. White, Councilmember White, proposing things, saying who he thinks he should go to engage in the bribery, and then suggesting other potential targets, including the mental health grants that might be available and federal housing grants that might be available.
Hashimoto says White's legal team will probably go after the motive of the informant who pled guilty to accepting fraudulent loans. The informant most likely landed a deal from the Department of Justice, and the informant should be motivated to testify against White.
He certainly has an incentive to make Councilmember White look as bad as he possibly can, because that will help him try to get himself out of the mess that he's in.
The I-team has asked White and his attorney, Fred Cook, if they would sit down and answer questions on camera. So far, it's a no.
Mayor, will you allow DYRS and the ONE's directors to speak?
To speak about what?
Where they're directing everything to you.
Okay, and that's where the question should go.
To them, and they're allowed to speak.
About what? What's your question? Tell me.
About what's going on with Trayon White and ONE's and DYRS.
Well, I don't know that, like, as I mentioned, we have a process and an internal process, and we don't have anything to add at this time. But when we do,
so what about the directors of those two agencies?
They don't have anything to add either. All right. They don't. But when we do, we'll share it.
We also asked the mayor When was the last time she spoke to Councilman White, who is now under a federal investigation? The second FBI investigation probing D.C. government officials in the past 6 months.
Mayor, have you talked to Trayon White?
I haven't.
The I-team discovered through a Freedom of Information Act request that the mayor spent 30 minutes with D.C. Councilman White on July 22nd. It was a Monday, 4 days before the FBI say White accepted a $15,000 bribe. The meeting sandwiched in between the mayor's weekly meeting with D.C. Police Chief Pam Smith and a meeting with D.C. City Council Chairman Phil Mendelson.
When was the last time you talked to Trayon White?
I don't know. I can't say.
DYRS, the other D.C. department mentioned in the federal criminal complaint, also says any questions we have, ask Mayor Bowser. You gotta love transparency in the district.
Today, he sat directly facing his fellow council members as they detailed why they feel he should be out.
This is quintessential corruption. There's only one remedy to remove the corruption from our body.
And with that, Council Chairman Phil Mendelson put forth a motion to recommend expelling Councilmember Trayon White after the chairman of this committee determining his fate lined out the findings from a report they commissioned.
This investigation was thorough and it was independent. The firm found substantial evidence that Councilmember Trayon White Sr. violated the law and council rules.
It all stems from Councilmember White's federal bribery charges. He's accused of steering city contracts from government agencies to various companies and organizations in exchange for cash bribes and kickbacks.
The court will determine whether Councilmember Trayon White broke the law. The council must determine whether he broke the D.C. Council ethics rules.
One by one, almost every council member took time to outline why they feel the Ward 8 leader should be expelled.
People of D.C. and the nation's capital must have trust in our government, period.
Councilmember Trayon White betrayed the trust of his staff, the Council of the District of Columbia, district agencies, and above all, the residents of Ward 8.
Some also took the time to detail the good he's done for those residents.
I have seen his deep compassion and empathy in service of his community and the residents of Ward 8. But I also have faith and confidence in this process that has been clear and transparent.
So when it came time for a vote to recommend he be expelled,
The motion is adopted unanimously.
so was the motion to adopt the investigative report.
Councilmember, did they make the right call?
We got no response when we tried speaking to the council member afterward. He answered other questions with,
No comment at the moment. Thank you.
Ward 8 strong. D.C. Council member Trayon White obviously has support of residents in Ward 8. Last month, voters elected him to serve another term on council despite his federal bribery charge and upcoming trial. Why? His supporters say he gets things done. On Monday, D.C.'s council ad hoc committee decided to recommend to council that White be tossed out of office. Ward 8 residents told 7 News they don't believe anyone currently on council will take their calls and help with issues in Ward 8.
They could have censored him, but to remove him, just go hard and expel him and remove the representation from 87,000 plus residents when they know the state. It's people today gonna be evicted in Ward 8. It's people living right now with no water, no electricity. None of them gonna do the work.
Not all residents showed up to support White. This man who lives in Ward 6 believes the ad hoc committee made the right choice.
I feel the council acted appropriately and under its rules, and that Councilmember Trayon White should be expelled from the council, that his conduct was egregious and a violation of trust, and he is not the victim here.
I want to make this crystal clear to all his supporters out there. This is not the end to White's seat on the council. Today was a recommendation to remove him. It's going to take about 2 months to actually get it done if the council votes him out.
For the I-Team, Scott Taylor, 7 News.
All right, Scott, we've been following this. We'll continue to do so. We've covered this federal bribery investigation into Trayon White and the fallout from his charges. You can find all of our reporting at WJLA.com and our 7 News YouTube channel. You see the QR code right on your screen. You can scan to keep up with the latest developments.